Hi, Marco. Good morning from me. Good afternoon to you too. Good evening to you too.
Hello. Almost good evening, but the
Yeah.
sun is still high here, so it's fine.
Hello, great to
Yeah,
have you on.
welcome.
Yep. Nice to
Yeah,
hear. Nice to be here.
I think this is the fourth or fifth time we've done a stream together. Your first time on Analytic Endeavors, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely, yes. We had some live before, but before the new name. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome back on this, and yeah, I'm excited to anytime new custom visuals comes out, or ones that have certainly been updated is always quite fun for me because I really enjoy tinkering around with design. And the original one came out 5 years ago.
The first one.
First Synoptic, yeah.
Actually,
6?
it was a few months after Power BI was announced. So yeah.
Oh, so 10 years ago.
It's almost 10 years. Yeah, I was surprised too when we look at the dates. But yeah, we actually created the new versions of the custom visuals later on, but. People didn't remember. People don't remember, but actually, one of the first things that Microsoft did also to increase the visibility was to create a custom visuals for Power BI, and created a competition. There was an award for the best custom visual, so that creating this, they push the community to create more visuals to show up what was possible with a product.
I remember,
go ahead, Steve.
A few of yours, definitely in the very early days when there was a much smaller library of custom visuals. I think it's definitely grown a lot in the last 10 years. Some very interesting ones in the initial ones, but I definitely remember the panel being there for a long time.
Yep. Now I think the marketplace has more than 700 visuals nowadays, if you count everything. Yeah, that's a number.
More than a few for sure at this point. I remember you guys being one of the first out there as far as like a product family. And back in like 2018, you used to have the visuals chooser as well. That even helped people to like navigate it. But that was back when there was like 100
yeah, there were
100 or so custom.
Yeah, like 80 to 100, and the PDF we created had like a sort of classification that included almost all of the visuals, both the core visuals and the custom ones. But this is, I mean, we're working on something. So if you would see in a few months something new on OKVIZ website, where we would provide a better, experience to navigate through visuals, not just OKVIZ, but others. Because the problem is that we thought a lot about that, because that PDF had a huge success, but it was very expensive to maintain, and at a certain point was not longer useful because there were too many visuals. Anyway, so that's something, when we will have that ready, we could have another another live.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to use my very first presentation used to use that a bit on me because before Power BI, there was always the like choosing a story. So like you start with like a question, you're trying to do comparison between categories, across category. It would kind of show a little flow chart of what types of visuals to use. But it was generic for not any particular product. And you guys had a similar like, what's the story? Are you trying to tell things across time? This and so it's because I feel like for a lot of people, certainly with the plethora of visuals out there, it's like what's the one that's going to tell the most meaningful and accurate story with the data itself?
Yeah. Probably yes. Yeah.
So for the and I'll say in general, the topic of the day for the few people who are tuning into this who probably don't know who you are, if you want to do a brief introduction before we get started on the custom visual.
Yeah. So my name is Marco Russo. I work at SQL. There is an helicopter here. So my name is Marco Russo, and I work at SQLBI. We started many years ago working on the Microsoft Business Intelligence technologies, and since day 0 or days -1, day -1, we started to work with DAX, the language, and we wrote a lot of content, books and articles, videos, courses about DAX and data modeling for analysis services and then Power BI. Analysis services, Power Pivot, and Power BI. Now, when Power BI was released, we had this competition about about custom visuals, and we wanted to try to. We have people working in our team that help us maintaining the website and creating all the things that are needed to deliver the content that people can consume. And the skills that we had internally allowed us to create a few custom visuals. And when we evaluated that, that was an interesting, there was an interest, there was a potential market for that. Then we created a company, which is OKVIZ, which is just a branch of SQLBI, but is a separate company with their own, company name and brand and so on. Because this way, it was possible to focus energies and development resources to create custom visuals. And of course, there was a need for a sustainable economic model, so that these custom visuals that at the beginning were mainly free, how do you support them? I mean, you need revenues, right? And so we created commercial versions of a few visuals over time that added features to those free visuals. And Synoptic Panel is just another one of those. Actually, I think we finally have a commercial version of a free custom visual that we had for so many years available for free. But that, as I will explain later, there will still be a free tier for Synoptic Panel. More advanced feature and many features are now commercial, because otherwise the alternative would have been obsolescence of the old visual, and that visual is on all the API. So it was needed. Sooner or later we would have had to do something, right? So we just decided, okay, let's create a commercial version. And it took more than 2 years to get the version we will see today.
Well, and I like the fact that, as you mentioned, similar to Tabular Editor and a few of these other ones, where it's there's no planned obsolescence or retirement of the free version, so that will kind of stay with basic features. But it seems like there's been a continued need for enterprise clients to have a more robust one that's going to work for like larger companies or ones that are willing to pay for the extra bells and whistles.
Yes, and also, unfortunately, let's try to keep like 5 to 10 minutes just to discuss about the certification and the different versions we have, which, because I know it's complex, unfortunately is not our fault. I mean, that's Microsoft put a few limitations to what you can do with certified custom visuals, and so we had to do something to support features that otherwise would not have been available. So that's a long story, but I mean, it's less interesting. let's start to see something, and then we will talk about it. Otherwise, it's too boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're ready, we can throw something onto the screen.
Yeah. So just to conclude my presentation, I'm not the developer of Synoptic Panel. Okay, so I will present Synoptic Panel, but in the case of Synoptic Panel, I'm more like I would say a product manager, you can say that. Actually less than that, because I don't even know so well a few of the features of the tool. Okay, so I'm more like those people that don't know exactly everything is going on, but for some reason they have decision power in a company. Okay, I'm that guy for OKVIZ, right? And now I do the marketing. I had the marketing head today, but actually I also know several things about the technology behind and how you can create a model, the best way to take advantage of the features of the tool. And that's, of course, that's my area, right? So okay,
exactly, perfect.
Okay,
there we are.
So let's start. So what can we say about the Synoptic Panel? So I just prepared a few slides, but I will quickly jump over the demos to show the features of the product. So let's see if we can go. So the idea is that, let's say you have a floor plan. Let's say you have a map, or let's say you have just a drawing that you want to use to show data. Now, if you create an SVG version, which is a vector format, a graphical vector format, many products can export in that format, PowerPoint, Figma, many Adobe products, AutoCAD, many others. So all the products that create like a geometrical design of something, including, you know, any 2D, 3D, CAD or something like that, well, all these tools can usually export in this format. And this format has basically shapes, IDs, and we can use those shapes and IDs to display data. So that's the idea. So you can create your own custom visualization of the data, and you can bind objects that you have in this drawing to your data. That's the idea. We will see how to do that. Once you have that in Power BI, you can use it to display numbers, to display with colors what is the state of an area of your floor plan, for example, or you can use it as a slicer or both, because you can click on an area and you select that and you have the cross highlight with the other visuals in the map. Of course, you can mix that with also other static images and so on. And as I mentioned before, the first version, free version of Synoptic Panel was released in 2015, at the end of 2015, and won the Best Visual Contest competition, the award from Microsoft. If you look on our website, there is a blog post with the announcement, and there is a link to that blog post that announced the winner for this contest. Now, what happened in these years? Well, what happened is that visual was used in many situations, in many reports, and we received a ton of requests for many things. And you know, I will show you all the features that you will see. They are all coming from customer requests, and it took a while to implement them, because basically we had to create, let's say, rewrite the visual from scratch with a much broader view. And that the reason why the first version took like 2 months and the new version 2 years. So there is a 1 order of magnitude of difference in the code to write and in the complexity. So I think before looking at that, the best thing is that, okay, let's take a look at what we can do, right? And from my point of view, okay, let's do a very simple intuitive demo. Okay, so let's say we have a plan, right? We have the seat map of a plane, and we want to see where we sell the more expensive seats or the less expensive seats and something like that. Here we go. So imagine you have your data and you want to see, okay, when you plot this data over the seat map of the plane, how it goes, right? Now, in this particular case, we have always the same plane. And if I click here, you see that we have these different colors that have been mapped on like a conditional format where the color corresponds to a measure. Now, what happens? If I click on something, I can highlight that specific cell. So sorry, in this case, I click here, I can select a specific seat or more seats. Now I have to remove the filter here, sorry. If I click on a specific seat, I can see what is the seat type, what is the revenue for that seat, and so on, right? So just a mix between a slicer and something else. Now, this is Power BI. So, well, you know what? We want to see how we sell the tickets over time. Now, this is, of course, you can imagine we have dummy data. This is not the real data. And so you see that, oh, we sell one ticket at a time this way. But the idea is that this is Power BI. So you can include this other control. And so we filter over time the position. And so basically we are displaying always more seats. And so we create an animation. Now it is slow, but if we accelerate it, you can see how the seats are populated, because we see the order of the sales of the people that buy the ticket, buy the seat in the plane, right? So this is just an example to, okay, what is the example? So you have a list of transactions with all the tickets, but usually I think the interesting thing is that you want to see aggregated data here, And so that's the reason why, from my point of view, this visualization is way more interesting, because every seat has an aggregated value for all the sales that you made on a particular route or something like that. Now, that is I use this because, I mean, everybody knows this kind of visualization probably, but let's go to something that is less obvious. For example, let's say you go to the dentist, right? So I know, and so they could have analysis where they evaluate, the where they have to put implants based on the teeth. And this could change depending on, I don't know, demographic data or age or something else. So you see that in this case, I'm filtering on a slicer. And so we have all the data of all the patients and all blah, blah, blah. And every teeth is basically corresponding to what? To a particular teeth. And so we basically mapped this column, this attribute in this column that filtered that name of the teeth to position in the visualization, right? So I don't think that I have to go deeper at this level. I just want to give ideas about what can we do. Now let's. So these two examples are relatively simple. So we have a single map at a single level, but what we can do is something more complex than that. So let's go, for example, to the visualization I love more. Let's see if I find it. I have many, so I have to find it. 1 second. Where is I lost it? Oh, here. No. This is another one. Ticket sales. Here we go. Okay, so this one. So I don't know if you have been in Vegas. Vegas has a big sphere called the Sphere, which is like let's say a theater, a movie theater, cinema, arena, stadium. Imagine a place where you have seats, right? So what happens when you have tens of thousands of seats? You might want to see every single seat, but you could have a higher level view where you say, well, we have sectors like economy, regular, best, premium, right? So but then if I drill down, I have the sectors, which are the areas that you have in the theater. And if you drill down more, then you have the single individual seats arranged this way. And so the idea that you can have these different layers, and now I use the drill down level by level, but I could have went to a single element, like for example this one. So I go to 407 and I drill down. Okay, now we see here something with all the labels. So this is not the best visualization, but the idea, if I go up, probably this is easier to understand. If I go here and I repeat the same process, if I just go here, what I want to do, if you see the difference, now I went to a map where I have only that part highlighted. When you have like a building with many floors and many other areas in each floor, you don't want to zoom in and see everything at that level of detail. You want to see the more detail of just one area, which means that you need like a tree of SVG files, each one map at the different levels of your model. And if you think about it, I mean, that's something, I mean, it's not something that you do in 5 minutes, but it's something that you can do, and it requires more than 5 minutes, but not months of work, and not a specialized developer, because it's just a list of SVG files that we have to connect together. How? If we see this, I will show you how to create from scratch one example. But if I go here and I go in this manage maps, you can see here all the maps that we have here, and then we also can assign the mapping between each element and a particular other column and value of your model. Now, this mapping, though, is not available inside the visual when you have such a complexity. I will show you how to do this mapping manually, and this works well for smaller maps, because of course we have to understand, if you have like tens of thousands of seats, you probably want to automate the process. You don't want to manually go one by one and assign this. This would be crazy.
Agreed.
Right? So that's these are examples. Then just to very quickly give you an idea of other kind of visualization. Always in healthcare, these are injuries that can happen.
Oh, that's cool.
For people that have injuries doing certain sports, for example, right? So that's an example. Then we have, let me see, we have another thing is, this is crazy, but you have an office, you have desks, and each desk could be assigned to different people. So you just want to go here and you see, okay, this desk is assigned to Ava Miller, and this desk is free, right? Because it's not colored. So sometime, and you want to see how many hours that desk has been used, for example, or something like that, right? So that's another idea. In this case, you see we have 2 floors. So I go from the first to the second floor. You notice that some part that changed. This is just an example where within the map, we switch between 2 different areas. So you have a single model, but the data is scattered across different floors, and you do the selection within the visual. So you're not switching back and forth in Power BI. Something that you can do, though, because there is another way to do this, which is we dynamically assign the map and the mapping using a slicer, because you might want to use your slicer outside of this visual, provide a filter, and automatically do something. So there are, we enter here into a lot of conversation about all these. As I said, we had so many different requests that trying to satisfy every possible requirement was crazy. But when you actually, because for example, this is the case where a company has AutoCAD drawings, and they want to put them together in a way that they can display data, relevant data to the user. For example, in construction, they want to show the state of advancement of work, or the cost, or something else. In maintenance, they want to show where you have something is not working, where, and so on. I have another example, which is always in healthcare, and this is interesting because it's interesting if I have it. Let me see. It's interesting because I usually suggest that the direct query is not helpful, right? It's not. I mean, it's better to import, but this is a very good use case for direct query. I probably have to open it. No, here we go. So there is an hospital, and this hospital has a floor, several floors actually, where you have patients in rooms. Now think about this. Every bed in a room can have a male or a female, and you could have infectious condition. So these are constraints to consider when you have to put people in the bed. Now you think, okay, what's the point of using Power BI? At the beginning, I didn't get the point. I said, why do you want to use Power BI for that? And when you think about that, how do you imagine? Probably they have a system that manages the assignment of the bed to everyone. But let's say that you want to provide this map that probably is in some, custom built application. You want to provide this map to the nurse that is walking in the floor, and how do you manage that? You want to provide to on a tablet device, on an iPhone. Well, this is a map deployed to Power BI. You have security, you have deployment, you have the application. The cost for development is almost zero. No code, no anything. The skills required are extremely small. And so they basically connected straight to the database where they have this data in the application, direct query. And I said, it makes sense because you have a small amount of data. You're not aggregating data. You're not managing a large volume of data. And you need real time because you want to see up now, where is a free seat that I can use, considering that I have a female that that cannot stay in a room where there is an infectious condition or something like that, right? Imagine the constraint you might have, and that's a very good example. So there is nothing fancy in this graphic, but it's just the idea of having the constraints, the proximity constraints you want to consider at first sight, right? So that's an easy way to manage that. And that's really, this is a real use case. I mean, we never thought about that until we received an email and I was, oh, guys, I have to do this. And because they asked, for example, how to add this icon with the infixation, because they had, okay, I know how to use male and female, but how do I put this, right? And we said, oh, we can add a feature to do that. so that was another feature we added. Okay, so but I mean, I have other examples, but I don't know if there is some question you have now.
I really like this one. I think we're all very familiar with analytical style reports in Power BI and sort of some, graphics and analytical style. This really shows, I think, in mind that we can use it a lot more for sort of these operational and kind of seeing in real time whether things are, as you say, free. And I really like the seat ones. The point that it's very easy is I love, because I don't like hacking things around. So I think it's giving us a lot of ideas in sort of operational style reports for those clients with Power BI.
Yep, very good. So, for example, I have this other one. This is an A/B test in our web page, right? So you have the let's say aggregated data from your weblog, and you want to see what is the result, what are the number of visits with a certain layout, another layout. So you can change the map, which represent different layouts, and you can see what happens, and you can color the area, the articles that have been visited more, less, and so on. That's just, so it just to at the end of the day, it's always the same problem. But when you think about different contexts, you might not realize, oh, I could have used Synoptic Panel because I want to display in a graphical way the position of the information, right? And that becomes relevant in your visualization. So that's the idea behind Synoptic Panel at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much as long as you can imagine a functional layout that makes sense to categorize and organize something. Then the thing that I actually liked about the bed one is it's a really good option for series of attribute pairings. I actually have Steve and I have a client that works that does building management and owns a bunch of buildings and layouts. And I can imagine even like a bunch of sections where it organizes by attribute type. If you have like dozens of attributes related to just items that you have, but it's too hard to put into like bar charts and stuff. Just being able to have sections where it's like, these are 5 attribute types, here's 7 paired attributes and all this, and just in some type of a Figma diagram. I think there are nearly limitless possibilities for data, where one visual can become a lot more dense to a degree. You can have a lot more data density, but organized in a way that doesn't become confusing or overwhelming. I think when you can choose your organization for that.
Yes. Yeah. For example, the classic example is the funnel, right? You want to graphically display the funnel of leads that bring to Now, in my opinion, probably there are other. You can use a trade-off without getting a custom, unless it is very simple. So you can get the free version, of course, but maybe you don't need that complexity. But conceptually, it could be used for a lot of situations. In my experience and from the feedback I see, and I can go back to the slide so that I want to show you. So these are the use cases we identified so far. So spatial layouts, floor plans, warehouses. For example, warehouses is we have a lot of companies for logistics that want to see how the apples or the oranges or whatever they store and where and blah blah blah, because there are constraints about the weight and other stuff and the age of something, and so they want to see graphically, right? So this information, status dashboards, like the equipment, matrices of risk, like heat maps if you want, more sophisticated, inventory mapping, like something that I shown you without in the examples, process diagrams, organizational charts, flow charts. That's another kind of visualization you could use. Industries, I have seen in the comments, manufacturing is, of course, manufacturing and logistics top, facilities management, real estate, another great consumption.
Oh, yeah.
Utilities and energy, I still have to understand how they use it, to be honest, because when I say, oh, we are an energy company, we need Synoptic Panel, I say, well, exactly, what do you do with Synoptic Panel, with the energy company? But I still have to learn. Healthcare, like the examples I've shown you before, retail, if you have the floor plan of a shop, malls, and so on. So that these are the main industry that we have seen so far. Even if I have seen, I mean, you can think that about a sort of real estate, but a prison can actually use a Synoptic Panel. And I said, okay, what do you do? But actually, you should think about it. It's a floor plan, right? So
Yeah,
it's always a floor plan. So okay, yeah, makes sense.
We do have a question up here in the comments. I think this was going back to your direct query, asking if you use real-time intelligence, or maybe if you've ever seen any clients use real-time intelligence to interact with the data.
So far, okay, so conceptually, as far as I know, so when you use real-time intelligence, I actually the real-time. So I think that real-time intelligence in this case is related to Fabric, I guess. Makes sense?
I would assume so.
So from what I know, you don't really have a full integration of the real-time intelligence data pushed to the report in Power BI. Okay, so you have specific visualization that work this way, and usually they're not even in the Power BI report. For example, if you use the push dataset, which is another kind of dataset you have in Power BI, the real-time behavior, so you don't do anything and data. So from my point of view, real-time behavior means that I don't do anything. I just watch the video. I watch the screen and I see data changing. Okay, that's for me is real-time updates in the report. And that is a feature only available in the dashboards of Power BI, not in the report. If you enter the report, you have to click refresh, and potentially you could say refresh every X minutes or seconds, which means that every X you have a refresh of the visual, which means that okay, I can set an auto refresh of the visual, and that's from my point of view is a different problem, because then you don't have the same let's say flow. I don't know how to explain. So you don't have the same visual effect as something that is pushed. Okay, pushed means that as soon as there is an update, I see the data changing. If I have an automatic refresh, I could see something that changes without changing anything. When you see the flicker in the screen, and so you see that the data disappear and appear again, and nothing changed, that's confusing from my point of view. Nothing should change if data didn't change. So in this specific case, the example we discussed before, they just use direct query because it's a simple application built to have a feature that is simple and is like you said, operational. It's not analytical. They just want to see what is the current state with the minimal engineering effort required. Real-time updates are not so simple to manage, and usually if you need real-time updates, you have a big problem to solve, not someone who want to save money to create a simple report. My opinion.
What's the number one industry across all of these? So these in an order that is would you sit, or just this top in any particular order? Have you noticed ones that have found more value than others?
I don't know. So the two big industries in terms of numbers at the moment are energy, not necessarily renewable, also oil and gas, and
yeah, like oil drill sites and stuff, fields.
Yeah, and facilities management too.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But also logistics. Logistics. Yeah, but the first two are those that are moving faster, in my opinion, and which is amazing because we didn't publish many use cases for those. So we see demand in areas that we didn't plan. Okay, we knew, for example, real estate companies that manage buildings all around the world, they're very interested for a number of reasons. Not just, they could be interested in sales, pre-sales, maintenance, construction. So there are a number of areas where they can use for different reasons. They can use it. And for example, for example, if you are a real estate and you ask me, publish to web, what does it mean? You want to show data for sales, right? Because for the main, because otherwise they are sensitive data. So the only data that you want to publish in public are data related to, you want to sell something. So you probably want to create like a dynamic navigation of the available, I guess, right? I don't know, but I guess you have a building, you have apartments, you want to sell these apartments that you are building, and you want to provide a dynamic, navigation overview or something. And of course, you can hire someone that does the job for you, or you can do. I don't think that the quality is so good using something that you do in-house. But if the issue is different, so again, I have no idea. Is the issue that you want to provide technical information about the building? Imagine you're not building luxury apartments, but you're building like units in a storage facility. Well, at that point, I'm more interested in exactly how many meters I have, what is the temperature here, what is, technical details that could be easy to store in databases that you can easily update. That's just an idea I have. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I have no idea. If I look at the customers we have, 80% of the customer, I would like to spend 1 hour and show me what you did, because I have no idea. So I have
That's fair. Yeah, it's good to know. I hadn't thought of oil and gas as an energy one as well too. But again, like anything where there's a physical location of something, I think almost to a degree, seems the most organic one. But even the metaphorical ones where you have a Figma map in your head of how things should be laid out.
Talking about that, I would like to show you. Okay, we have seen, finished report, demos. Okay, but what when I start from scratch? What happens, right? Because to me, it's always okay. You show me a dice demo now. Show me what happens for real, right? So let's say I have my Contoso file. So let me remove this. I want to start from scratch. Come on, I want to remove this. I didn't want to do this. How can I remove this one? Come on, delete. No, I cannot delete it. Oh, here we go. Finally. Okay, so this is the example that we use for most of the demos we do at SQLBI, right? So we have a simple database, Contoso, where we have sales, date, store, customer, product. Okay, so let's assume that we have a store where we have areas of the store where there are specific product categories. So we want to see the sales by product category mapped on the areas of the store. So that's the business scenario I want to describe. So this means that if I look at the data here, by brand, we have the sales amount. I can filter by color. I can see that. And I can also use, I don't know, I can go here in category. I can put the category here, for example. If I put the category here above the brand, I could say, okay, this is the value by category. Let's go here for a second. And I can drill down. I can see for every category which brands I have. Or I can do the opposite. I can do this, and I can go by brand and then by category, and I can see this. Now, the problem is, okay, let's say that for some reason, it would be interesting to know whether a few numbers, or for example, not just this amount, but the margin percentage is bigger or lower, because also the position. I have no idea. I'm just inventing something, right? So at this point here, I don't have no idea, because this is sorted by what? By alphabetical name. I have no idea, right? So what I want to do, and so let's remove the category here, and let's go back to this visualization. I want to include a map. So what happens? I go to OKVIZ or AppSource, then we will discuss about that, and I get my Synoptic panel here, visual. And you see that at this point, the visual is empty because I have no data. Two things I want to do. I want to display data by category. Categories means the categorization attribute. It could be, I don't know, the state, the country, if you have a map, okay? and the value, right? Because I want to see the margin percentage, for example. And then you see that at this point, even if I don't have a map, I already have a visualization of what are the categories I have. I already have a slicer. If I click this slicer, I see only the cell phones. I see only the TV and video, only the home appliances. Okay, I'm filtering the other visuals in the map, in the report. At this point, I want to add a map. Okay, I add a local map, which means that I go to my local storage and I import a copy of the content of an SVG file. So whatever I do now, I will save everything in my PBX file. I'm saying that because the map could be somewhere else. Now we're looking at the simple case. Okay, I'm just importing the map. And I have a mall, an SVG file with a mall. Here we go. Now this is my SVG file. Now this SVG file is mapped to the category. Okay, so we have category is a column, and we want to map category here. So in category, we have names, because if we query the model, we have the list of the categories. Now, if I go in edit, okay, so the SVG file, I already prepared the SVG file in some way, okay? I need an editor for that. And now I see that this is the hierarchical structure of my SVG file. An SVG file is a list of objects that you have. And for example, if I click on base ground is just the floor. If I click on this null pointer logos, this is the sum of all these objects, these shapes. These untitled are all the elements that provide the 3D visualization. Okay, so what do I want to color? Well, I want to color some of these elements. For example, this one is one store. This one is another store. This one is another store. What are these names? These are the IDs that I have in these objects. At this point, I could go say, oh, you know what? This is cell phones. Here we go. Now I said, okay, this object is cell phones.
Okay.
Now, if when I prepared the SVG file, I used in the ID of the object the X name of the category, guess what? Scroll down. Here we go. These objects already had the right name, because when I created the SVG file, I assigned the ID that correspond to the right brand. This will save me time, because this way the SVG is ready to be used with my data. But if I have an SVG file that someone, I receive from the architect an AutoCAD file that doesn't have exactly the names that I want, and then I have to do the mapping. So Synoptic Panel has this mapping feature embedded in the visual. In the version 1, you had to use an external editor to do that. Now it is embedded here, which is more convenient because you see the names that you have to use here. So this click here, data point auto-bind. Auto-bind means if the name matches, this is the matching that you want. Okay. And so if you think about what I did, so I imported the file. Most of the categories were already mapped. You can see this is cell phones, this is music. Now think about this. Cell phones now is two stores. It's two areas, because I have cell phones here auto-mapped, but then I have cell phones here, right? This map 160 is still cell phones. So when I will select cell phones, I have those two elements highlighted. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now I just click save and close. And now when I have, for example, let's go here. When I have, I think that, okay, see we go. Now I removed any selection. Now I don't have any selection active. And what I see is that, for example, let's go in, I don't remember the phone company. If I go to phone company, which probably has cell phones, you see that only these two elements are highlighted. Now let's take a look at the color. What am I using for the color? Well, let's take a look. If I go to this visual and I go to areas, I probably want to use not a color. If the element is selected, show me this. If the element is mapped, show me blue. No, I want to use something custom, right? I want to create a gradient where the margin percentage goes from, let's say, red, then yellow, and so I use this green. Okay, I'm just creating a gradient for the margin percentage. And here we go. Now I have you see that these colors are, so the elements that have a mapping are colored. Now, I should also remove the colors, the default colors, highlight with particular colors the elements that are bound or unbound. I want to remove that because it could be confusing. Let's use the gray color for everything that is not bound. Okay, grayscale, grayscale. So this way, now you clearly see the categories that I mapped have a color, everything else is gray. Okay? Now, what happens? If I choose a color, you see that in this case, this Azure has only one brand, which has only one category, which is cameras and camcorders. Okay? And I can zoom in, and you see also, oh, we had the logo for cameras and camcorders, by the way, because this logo is part of the SVG file. Okay? Let's click on black, and now we have something else. And now I click on blue, and we have something else. This is an artificial visualization. I'm showing the margin percentage by product category of the products that have a certain color. And I see this by area. It doesn't make any sense, I know, but Contoso doesn't have much data. Come on.
Sure. So yeah, that's fair.
But this gives you an idea about what you can do. And I wanted to show you, starting from scratch, what I have to do to create this mapping. Then the quality of what you obtain highly depends on two elements: the quality of the drawing that you create and the richness of the data that you can map. These are the two elements that combined together produce a difference between two reports. For example, if I go to another page I prepared before, so this is just the same example I prepared, that was my trial, but look at this one, right? For example, here I have the graphic here, the line chart here shows these measures over time. Okay, this doesn't make much sense, but look at what happens. Now I can use this as a slicer. So I can use this element as a way to slice the data, right? Because I can use the map as a way to select the elements or as a way to show data or both. So that's the idea. So you can use in different ways.
Well, the top-down 2/3 perspective I really like as well too, with that, and the fact that the elements lay onto that so well with the vector graphics and everything.
Yeah. So of course, when you want to create the multiple levels in a map, that's at that point you start to increase the complexity. You see that there is a combo here because we might have multiple maps for the same, let's say, in this case, category. But then you could also have more levels. So the map manager allows you to add more maps and more levels to the map. So that's where we should start a tutorial about how to create the more complex map. The good thing is that we have documentation about this process. So this is the documentation we have for all the visuals of OKVIZ. In particular, Synoptic Panel is here. And you see that there are a number of information. For example, I want to create an SVG file. What should I have? What should I do? And here we have examples with different products and so on. We have example with Figma. You use Figma, you have to do this, and that, and use this, because you have to prepare the file in a certain way so that the ID would have the names that you want. You want to use PowerPoint, we still have to prepare that. PowerPoint out of the box doesn't produce it, but we will provide like macros or tools that extract from PowerPoint the SVG file that correspond to what you want. Because at the end of the day, what is the product that everybody knows to create something? PowerPoint, right? I mean, PowerPoint, everybody knows PowerPoint. So if you have to create something from scratch, you could use PowerPoint. And one thing that many people did, they started from just a bitmap, a picture, a photo, and they created, areas on top of the picture. And they use that area with a transparency to highlight part of the picture. Winery. They want to see the production of the winery in different parts of the hills. That's what. So they get a aerial picture, and then they created the areas, and they color the areas depending on the quality of the production, something like that. I don't know.
I believe you have or had a website which helped sort of do that on a picture. Is that correct?
Yeah. There was a builder before.
Yes. So okay. So indeed we have this tool, Synoptic Designer, which is actually a tool that allows you to get a bitmap or an SVG file, and you can edit the IDs, because if you think about that, you can map an object after you have an ID, but what when you have to insert the ID? So what we can do, if I browse this model and I open my, for example, I created this file with PowerPoint. I was testing a tool to do the thing that I mentioned before, and you see that here I have 3 squares where we have a datum, Fabrica, Contoso, and I can change this, right? I can provide the ID and also the name to be displayed, right? So the name to this could be a datum this way, but the ID could be different, something like that. But in the gallery, you can see we have a gallery of elements that have been already created, and these are SVG file you can use also. This was built for the version 1, but it's still working for the version 2. And one of the features that you have is that you can actually import a bitmap file, and then you can draw lines around the elements and assign IDs. So starting from scratch. I have to say that this editor is very limited. So we thought about importing the editor within the visual, but there were too many limitations. So we preferred at the moment to keep this outside. To be honest, the professional use of Synoptic Panel, they never use this editor. So we have seen that most of the consumption they start from existing files that they have. Most of the large customers, they don't start from scratch. But again, you can start from scratch if you want. So it's not impossible. There are many ways, and we tried in the documentation to provide as more information as possible to explain how to do that.
And that kind of setting up, I guess, is kind of a one-time thing, right? For the most part, for most maps, because assumably you'll want to be reusing your maps across most reports.
Yes.
Well, it's been. I remember, I built something in this probably from my first time, 7 years ago. There was a custom map that was needed for. It was an actual map, but it was needed for a county. But one of the things that I really liked about this is I remember it auto detects data points, but you can go in and you can add or remove the shape as well. So you can even edit, if it's not perfectly tracing, you can add additional spots to almost like at a PowerPoint doc to get that shape to be more granular and everything, which is very convenient as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I have. I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm checking if I have something here to show, but I don't remember. I didn't prepare an example for that use case. I mean, because I need a picture. Let me think. Well, I can use this. We can go on our website. So if I go to my website and we get, for example, I don't know, we can get any picture. Like for example, this book. If I get the image link and I go here and I say, okay, clear everything. No. I want to insert this and I want to get it. No. This doesn't get the PNG. Okay, let's try this. I didn't prepare this, so I don't know if it works. Let's try. Here we go. So now, how does it work? So this is only one area, but we have this magic. Oops, I made a mistake. Sorry. Let me try again. This tool, I have no idea if it can work. This tool automatically discovers bitmap areas, but I think it only creates. Yeah, you click on a part, but if you don't have a white background, it doesn't work well. Now we created only one big one, so I should find a picture that has oh, I can do this. Let me check. I can do this.
I've used this before for a flowchart. I think it worked very
exactly.
well. It was very clear. So that stuff.
I'm trying to save a bitmap that is a screenshot, but this way I have a blank background. So see just a bit, and now I clear and I browse just a bit PNG. Let's see what happens. Okay, now I do this. So if I go here and I do this here, you see that now when I click on an element, you see that it finds the areas, right? So depending on when I click, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. But conceptually, if you have shapes of some type, they can be found, and then you can start, providing a name. So, for example, this is Contoso, and this is ABC, and so on, right? So, and this way, then you can, have this idea, and the SVG file will have this area on top of the bitmap. So that's the idea. Sorry, I didn't have a better bitmap, but I hope that you get an idea about how it works.
Oh yeah, I mean, just the auto detect, and again, this you've had this for 8 something plus years.
It's 2015.
2015, yeah. So like, yeah, but back then, this was one of those mind-blowing things. Yeah.
But I don't remember if this website was in the early 2016, but it is between 2015 and 2016. So that's the period. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool today. Back then, it was one of those, just like, I was surprised there was a tool that was this easy to use back in 2015. Considering everything else you had to build from hand, and this just gave you the file. Yeah. Kudos to whatever developer built that back then.
This website or what?
This auto mapper.
Yeah, I think it's always Daniele that wrote this, and he probably started from some existing library, and then he made something that made the job. So yeah, to be honest, I never investigated too much, but I think everything is in the browser, so it's actually JavaScript code that is in the browser.
Excellent.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to talk, because first of all, are there any questions I didn't see?
Yeah. Nothing else that I see for a question at the moment. Just that a few people. Well, there was one comment of excited to be able to play around with this, and
exactly. I saw that. And so, okay, just before we move to that area, so okay, how the licenses work. A feature that we don't have time to see today. When you have so maps can be huge. And including a map in Power BI could be a problem, because you end up having the PBX file that is very large. So, and that has a number of consequences. And there is also a limit in the size of the PBX file, the report file. So there are a number of things that can be not ideal. So it could be helpful to use an external map. But if you use an external map, you cannot just provide an URL. There are constraints about the URL that you could use in the properties of custom visual in Power BI, right? Because Microsoft doesn't want you to hack Power BI, right? Because so there are a number of requirements, which means that it could be, for example, storing your I don't know SVG file on OneDrive, not an option. Okay, you cannot. You have to use a certain, and so it could be not easy for an individual user in Power BI to comply with this. What we do, we provide a service called My Storage. So you can store your map on a storage we provide that has all the characteristics that can be compliant with Power BI, and this is included in the license, of course. If you say, Marco, but this way, my data, even if it is only a map, is stored on your cloud, well, you can provide your own key. So everything is encrypted. Because actually it's a service we provided to enable the customer to have so many maps. Imagine you have, for example, hundreds of maps, and depending on the selection, you want to upload the map of that building. You have hundreds of buildings. What do? You cannot store all the maps into Power BI, right? And so that's the feature that we provide for those companies that don't want to create their own service to comply with this.
True.
Then we have, I gave you an insight about the map manager in the visual, but there is also a label editor. You want to create labels in the map, just text to decorate something, you can. We have seen an integration of the filtering mechanism with Power BI, and the drill down, I just gave you an overview, even though we didn't go in the details about how this works. And the conditional formatting and the area highlight, these are features that we have seen. Most of these features were not available in version 1. So these are new features, mostly new features of version 2. We have seen how to create an SVG file. I mentioned at least Figma, PowerPoint, Illustrator, Inkscape are design tools, but there are many professional formats. Or Revit. Revit is another format. We have a use case coming that will be published soon on OKVIZ, where we describe this process. Revit is for architects is the standard for the buildings. PDF, Visio, could be other formats that you can convert to SVG. And we have seen the manual way to assign the ADs in the visual, but most of the users rely on some script that does the conversion. Okay, so when you have a large project, think about spending some time trying to figure out how you automate the conversion of the file, because 99% of the times, the information that you need is already there. It is just not in the form, in the way you need it to create the mapping here. Sometimes the name is different. The name you have in your data is different from the name that you have there. So somewhere you have to translate these names. Okay, and these are things that require a little bit of coding usually. Okay. Oh, now the boring
important parts.
So first, is this visual certified? Yes, but it doesn't support a number of features. So we created a light version, which is the certified version, which has also the free tier. If you create up to 15 data points, up to 15 binding, it's free. Okay, so your dashboard with 5 areas that are colored, that's free. Okay, no problems. And you can use the light version. You have to embed the map in the visual in the Power BI report, because that's a requirement for the certification. A certified visual cannot get data from outside the report, period, full stop. But I have a lot of maps. Sorry, you cannot use the certified version unless you implement all the maps into the visual. So the light version doesn't have remote maps, doesn't support Power BI embedded, doesn't support publish to web, doesn't support report server, doesn't support national clouds.
Okay.
Not because the certified visual cannot, but because the licensing cannot support them. Okay. So the commercial version has everything plus the My Storage. We can host your maps, but it is not certified, and it is only available as a commercial version. So you don't have the free tier in this case. That's it. So small model, small number of things, free, certified. You need the certification. You can still use it, but you have to consider the constraints that you have. We received in the last 2 months a lot of requests, not a lot, but several requests. But we want to use publish to web with a certified version. Sorry, you cannot. But we need the certification. Sorry, ask to Microsoft. I mean, so we don't know how to solve it, right? Again, the problem is not the certification per se, but if the visual is commercial, so if you have to pay for the visual, the licensing provided by Microsoft does not support those platforms. And so ask to Microsoft, because to be honest, we as a vendor would like to support those platforms. It's not our choice. That's it. So it is what it is. So
and I think a big one, honestly, is going to be the publish to web embedded, any of those custom scenarios, which honestly, I feel like there's a strong overlap between embedding and custom visuals, because by the time you're starting to do custom reporting, like you're often starting to explore some non out of box visualizations for sure.
But sorry, but what is the problem with publish to web? Because actually the version that you get from OKVIZ works. So where do you see the problem?
I'm not saying that there wasn't any problem mentioned. I was reiterating an understanding of why.
I didn't mention an important thing. The price is the same. The difference between the two versions is not the price. The price is the same. You can get the version that you want. We don't care. The problem is, because we had to provide a certified version, because there are companies that want the certified version, and there is no way to have a conversation here. We had to do that. The problem is, and I could talk for an hour. The certified version, if I was in a company and I have to, and this component is critical, the last thing that I want to do is having a certified version, just for one reason. The certified version, I cannot control which version of the component is in production. And that's enough for me to say no deal. As a service administrator, the version deployed to my reports is driven by Microsoft only. I have no control. The certified version doesn't guarantee that the visual works. The certified version is only, Microsoft says, oh, we look at the code, and this code is not harmful. It doesn't try to steal your data. But this doesn't mean that it will work. Because the certified version deploys this, not only that, the app source version deploys this is valid for all the visuals. You get the visual from app source, all the world has the same version of the visual. That's the reason why when there is a new version, they don't deploy the same build to all the users. They start with they have rings, ring 0, a few hundred, a few thousand. When they say, oh, you will have this version within 3 weeks. When? No idea. I mean, it depends on which ring you are, which is something they cannot tell you. So just because this way, if something goes wrong, if they receive requests to the Microsoft support because a particular visual is creating problems, they roll back to a previous version, every user in the world. Now think about this. If we release a new version today, you start using this version and you use a new feature of the new version, and 2 weeks later, a customer has a problem and Microsoft decides to roll back, your feature is gone. We have no control. So I always say, look, you want to be in control, you want our version, not certified, you publish this version to the organizational visual, you control how to test it, how to deploy it, when to deploy which version. You want to revert to a previous version, you do that when you want to the version that you want, you are in control. When you use a component, a visual from the app source, you have no control. Now, if this visual is just something that doesn't matter for critical report, I don't care. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I use the visual to do an animation, to do the aquarium. It doesn't work, I don't care. But if my visual is critical for the operation, I want it to work, and I want to blame someone, OKVIZ, for example. Oh, it doesn't work, fix it as soon as possible. If you ask this to Microsoft, they say, oh, we have to ask to the vendor, and then they have to release a new version, then we have to deploy the new version, and maybe in 1 month you will have the upgrade. That's how it works. So we try to explain it. It's not to blame Microsoft. I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, if you buy a component from you buy the software or a service from a company, that company is liable, right? So what do you need? You need someone that is liable. When you buy the component from Microsoft, who is liable? Microsoft or the vendor? Oh, you want to start a conversation here with the lawyer? It's interesting. Whereas if you buy from the company, I mean, there are no doubts. The company is responsible. So from my point of view, it's a no-brainer. If I have to decide on the other side, and I understand how it works, I said, no. This is company is critical. I want the company. I want someone I can call. I can sue. They will fix it as soon as possible.
Well, and thankfully, at least, I'm curious on how has your experience of Microsoft support, by the way, been over the last 10 years that you've been doing this with custom visuals? Because I think early on you would probably agree that like Microsoft was open source technically, but there wasn't a lot of, I feel like, direct support from them on trying to encourage people to use custom visuals. But I do think the story shifted a little bit in the last 3 to 5 years on them, further publicly acknowledging and supporting and encouraging people to explore some of these. So what's your been opinion of the evolution of the story they've been telling around their partnership with like people who build custom visuals?
Well, the reality is that Microsoft is not interested into this market. I mean, let's call this as it is, right? So it's not
a spade a spade.
Sorry?
Oh, so there's a phrase in here. It's calling a spade a spade.
Ah, okay. Right. Sorry. Thank you for suggesting me. Yeah. And not to the idioms. The thing is, it's a small market for Microsoft, right? So it's not important. It's not critical, and actually, they don't earn money on it. The Microsoft. So people could say, "Oh, you want customer to buy the license from OKVIZ because this way you don't pay a cut to Microsoft." I can tell you the truth. Microsoft get almost less than what we pay for a credit card transaction. So that's not an issue. Actually, Microsoft is not getting money from the custom visual. I know for sure, right? I can tell you, I know the numbers. They are not earning money, for sure, 100%. And the cost they have to support the certification process and so on is probably more than what they get from the revenues from the cut that they get from the vendor. So that's, they are not doing, they don't have a business with the custom visuals. And that could be a problem, right? Because not having a business, they don't have resources to allocate. But this creates a problem now because there are APIs that don't support a feature that they implement, for example, in core visuals. So sometimes you have a feature in core visual that cannot be reproduced in a custom visual. There are limitations to what you can do. There are delays in what could happen. We had problems with Microsoft support. For example, you will find reviews on App Source that are bad for several of our visuals that are commercial. If you look at the review, the problem was the licensing. And the problem was often the fact that there was a problem with the Microsoft website for completing the transaction. They opened the ticket with Microsoft. Microsoft said that you have to call to the vendor, but the vendor cannot do anything because you do the transaction with Microsoft. So it's so small that also Microsoft support sometimes doesn't know that. Now, this improved because we made a lot of complaints because of that. But sometimes it happens again. It happened after they fixed this months before. Now it happened again a few weeks before. Okay, there are episodes. They are not big numbers. I understand. But again, when you see a review with 1 star, that especially for a visual that doesn't have many reviews, that moves the ratings down. Now, we don't like to buy reviews or something like that. We like to play fair, but it is what it is. So if you look at the rating, the rating is not great. Also for Synoptic Panel, the new Synoptic Panel has a bad rating because sometimes, for example, someone said this is not working because I tried to import in version 2 and version 1 and it doesn't work. Come on, there is a documentation that explained it. This is a new implementation. You cannot replace the visual just because the data is not compatible. You have to import the SVG again, do some operation again, and there is documentation to explain that. And of course, it's not ideal, but it is what it is because the choice was leave the version 1 forever, and it would have died at one day because it is based. It was based on a version of the API that is no longer supported. So we should have, in any case, changed it. But again, we have to find a sustainable economic model. What is a sustainable economic model for a free visual? I have no idea.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about this years ago, and you just like, I mean, for the most part, building them is prohibitively expensive because it's almost to a degree of like people treat a custom visual with an expectation that like you should be able to change anything for them, or at least a lot of people did. Is they would complain or give bad reviews if it didn't have X, Y, or Z, and they would expect like, no, you should be able to add this. This is a custom visual. You can change those. You have control, so therefore you should add this feature. It's like, you understand that's 10 hours, 20 hours of development for our developer to build that. So it seemed like there was a bit of a struggle, at least earlier on.
Is that, for example, I give you ideas. Okay, a sustainable economic model could have been Microsoft has I don't know, X dollar they allocate for the development of custom visuals, distributed depending on the adoption of the custom visual. Okay, that's a model. Is the best model? I don't think so, but let's say this is a model that could have could work. I don't know. They never tested it, right? So they never thought about that. So the thing is that the investment was relatively small, and this means that a free visual, by definition, is not maintained. And you say, but so I mean, because a free visual is created for what? For example, because it is a support for another product, right? So is a visual, for example, Autodesk created a free visual to display AutoCAD models, which is great. I mean, if you look at the visual, it's great. But of course, the interest of the company is to enable people to use their format in Power BI. And they don't go to the last mile to implement all those small features that can help every single customer, like we did it for 2 years, for example. Which means that in terms of 3D visualization, you have a 3D model, use the Autodesk visual, no way. But if you need to navigate as you want, that's a different story. The mapping you have there is not comparable to what we have. Again, different purposes. So if your goal is to have a visualization that enables you to navigate into the data of the project, then that visual is better, no doubt. Rendering is better, no doubt. Of course, we don't have 3D control, so we have only 2D SVG visuals. So that's what we. But because that was the request. But moving this conversation to other visuals, the thing is that you always have to see where the money goes, and the money are not in this market. Now, this market is big enough for a number of vendors, Microsoft partners, to pay the development, the support, and so on. But from the Microsoft point of view, is they have other interests nowadays, and they are not interested into that, as you can imagine. And that's a little bit a problem, because this means that the level of support we have for new features, for new APIs is minimal. The reason why we had to do this, I mean, this is the result of the ignoring the feedback we provided for 7-8 years. Because that should not happen. And come on, this should not. This is bad. I completely agree. This is bad. Why do we have this? This is bad. I completely agree. This is the best we can have today.
Exactly. It's the best of the current situation.
Works, go to the full version and ignore app source. If you have to maintain it, if it is critical in production, don't think for a single second to get a visual from app source. Because of the reasons that I provided. The certification is not a guarantee that, of course, if you have to provide a policy for your company for thousands of employees, it's easy to say, get only certified visual, which is a way to say, I don't care. I mean, just don't break things, okay? The issue is that the moment this is no longer just a small demo for a small number of people, but becomes critical, and then there are updates of the visual because the visual is maintained, other people build new features, and new feature has a regression. It happens also to Microsoft. What happens? That's a problem.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you as well is, as we're starting to wrap up, is there anything that you recommend as a way to get started with this, explore this, other than just going to kind of OKVIZ.com or the app source, for people who are interested in testing this out a little bit, or even getting some demo data for it?
For Synoptic Panel?
Yes.
For Synoptic Panel, so you can do two things. You can download it from app source, or you can just go to our website, because to be honest, you have 30 days for free. So you go to this website, you go start for free, you go here, And when you click a try or purchase, you can just try it. You don't have to provide a credit card. You don't have to do anything. You get a version that is valid for 30 days, and that's it. The easiest way to start is this one. If you do the same on AppSource, it's similar. You need the account on the Microsoft AppSource. You download it. Even if you don't pay for it, you can test it. But in order to test it, actually, you have to provide a use. I think that you have to provide a credit card there and not here. I don't remember how it works. But if you go here, you have both. Okay, free. You go to this link. Sorry, this is if you want to use the free version, you go to AppSource, free version forever. I mean, you get this install free. And then you don't have to pay anything. So you can just use it up to 15 data points. You don't get the request for the license. That's it. So if you want to test it, it's free, completely free. At this point, you can start from here. But if you want to go to the, if you want to use the advanced features that are not available for the AppSource version, you have to do that. And you see, the rating is 2.3. Why? Even the paid version is not supporting publishing public links. And what can I do, right? So that's exactly the problem of AppSource, right? The discontinued version was useful. This one has a variety of restrictions that make it effectively useless. The license system is also confusing. In a way, I agree, but why you gave me 1 star for that? I mean, that's, you see what I mean? So this feedback is very negative and doesn't help us, but nobody actually tells that actually the visual works, and it was much better than the previous one. The previous one had a lot of limitations. Come on, but you cannot. So we tried to provide comments. In the comments, we explained why it is what it is, but of course, not many people open the comments and read the reply anyway. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I've had my own fair share of grievances with marketplace ratings. Now I think you can comment, right? Like you can respond to a negative review. Yes.
Yeah, you can provide a comment. You can respond.
Yeah. Because like years ago, I was in the AppSource for Google, the Google Analytics report that I have, and people, it broke. I was caught in a loop with the team to update it, so it took like 8 weeks to update the file in the repository, and I got like 20 negative reviews. But one, I couldn't update it. I couldn't comment on the reviews either, so I couldn't actually provide an explanation below it to say, I'm sorry, we're working on a build, we're delayed by Microsoft. I eventually, I think a year later, Microsoft eventually removed the negative reviews due to the extenuating circumstances. But the thing that just really bugged me was that you could, as the owner of the product, I could not simply comment below the negative review to provide other people an explanation. Yeah.
Now you can
it's coming a long way, but it's been a very painful evolution of the store, I think, to allow it to be fair. So, yeah.
I know. Oh, I just want to mention that another thing that is a problem for AppSource is that if you want to pay by wire transfer, by check, you cannot. You have to use a credit card. And so there are companies that don't use a credit card. And so we have this hybrid licensing. So you can technically get the visual from AppSource because, for example, you want the certified version, but you want that your company pay only by wire transfer. So you can get the license from OKVIZ, but you can use the certified version from AppSource. Because I mean, the only reason why you want to get it from AppSource if you pay to us is because you want the certified version, and we cannot provide you a certified version. You have to download it from AppSource. There is no other way. So in terms of pricing, just to give an idea, the AppSource is a pricing per user, strictly by user, and of course, by the more user you get, the lower the price per user. And so the price could be as low as at $0.0249 per month per user, if you have many. And the more expensive one is $3 per month per user, if you get just one. Okay, but so if you get 20, you get $49 per month, which is already less than like two and something. But if you get the license from us, there is a flat rate if you have more than 8,000 users. So above that, you know whatever number you have, it's over. You pay the fixed rate. That's it. We don't ask for more. So company that have 100,000 users, they don't have to pay for 100,000 users. That's it.
At some point, there's a ceiling, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So there is a ceiling here. For example, this one, more than 8,000 on app source and more than 5,000 for OKVIZ is a fixed flat rate. Which I mean I know it is more expensive than other visuals from OKVIZ. This is the more expensive visual of our commercial visuals. We have other visuals that have a lower price, but actually this is we tried to provide a pricing that was good enough for the sales, but also good enough for the development. Because if it was too cheap, sorry for the name, too inexpensive, that would have probably provided not enough funds to continue the development. Now I hope we have a good level that can sustain the development, because there are many things that we want to do to continue the evolution, to be honest.
Well, I would be interested to see what this continues to look like in the next couple of years as it evolves, especially now that you actually have funding for it too. So it's but yeah, I've always appreciated the OKVIZ library, so it's nice to see the continued products for it.
We will see. To be completely transparent, I also added a slide with the alternatives to Synoptic Panel. So you say, okay, what are the alternatives? Well, the alternative is that there is a Power BI shape map which can only use predefined maps. So if your need is to display data on a geographical map without using a map online, so the Power BI shape map has like the territory for the United States, Europe, states level, country level, that is available. And at that point, I don't think you have to use our visual unless you have to customize those areas. You could create something in Python or R, which is another option, but requires custom coding. Or you could use other custom visuals. Like there are two visuals that I found in App Source. One is called PureViz, which is focused on infographics. But I think that the biggest issue is that I don't think is supported. If you click on the name of the company that produced it, the website is gone. So probably if you have a problem, it is what it is. Okay, you get it for free, but an animator is focused on animations. So if you look at the demos, you will find that okay, maybe for something that when you want this thing animated makes sense, but otherwise you can always use HTML visuals where you build your own code in HTML, but you don't have the notion of data binding. So the idea of having this map and connect to the data and animate everything with the HTML visual where you write the HTML code is complex, and you certainly cannot click and filter. That's absolutely not possible, because this is generated by using dynamic HTML code generated by a measure, and that's not an option at all.
I want to give a shout out to Power BI Shape Map for I think being probably the longest thing in preview feature I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, it's still in preview, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I swear.
Now.
I don't know if I'm misremembering or not. I swear that somebody at some point made a public statement where it's like it's never going to actually come out of preview or something like that. I think because there are a couple things in there that got dropped as a product, like spark lines. I don't think are coming out of preview ever. It's just a product where they killed the budget for it, right? So they won't delete it, but it's just going to stay there forever in limbo.
That's weird. That's only Microsoft can do that, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other company will be killed by the customers. Some
100%.
customer will wait you outside of the door and say, "Now you know what? Now you fix it. Otherwise, you don't go home." Anyway.
Any other final comments? And let me pop this off as we wrap up.
Yep.
From you, any other final comments to close off?
From me, well, so to be honest, there is so it has been a long journey to develop this visual. I'm happy about what we created, and I hope that it will get the adoption that it deserves, to be honest, because there's a lot of work behind, and I understand now that we found an area where there was a latent demand that was not satisfied, basically.
Okay.
I mean, anyone else could have done it, to be honest. But the work behind is not trivial, to tell the truth, because there are a number. I mean, when you go into the detail, there are a number of things to consider, and so having something that makes sense, that performance is another issue. People don't never think about the problem of the performances of these things, and that's another thing that had to be, we had to invest also in that. So let's say that at the moment, I think we have a list of possible evolutions, but at the same time, another thing that is more interesting for a broader audience is the evolution of the OKVIZ website, where we will provide more information about all the visuals, not just our ones. And that's something in a few months you will see something interesting, because I think that there is still a space for specialized custom visuals. So just another line chart, maybe not. I mean, I don't think that there is a market for that. There are already very good companies that created the very sophisticated charts, but for specific, visualization issues, I think there is still a space for a niche market, and also AI cannot solve it, because if you think about the problem we have seen, it's not something you can solve with just conversational AI. It's a problem that requires the alternative is that you develop a custom website and then you query your model, but that you had to rebuild the Power BI stack, because the moment you want to use the cross highlighting, that's a big problem.
True. Yeah.
You don't have
and I think
it's not easy to solve the problem outside of Power BI. That's what I mean.
It goes from whenever I think about custom visuals, I would close with this as well. One thing I always do is look at the company behind them. So, custom visuals, a lot of them can be built by individuals. So it's nice to see you putting a lot of effort into the website. So for me, my advice would always look at who produces them and make sure, because you could lose support in the future if it's just someone who gives up. So it's nice to see the investment you're doing there and the website and everything around that.
Yes, I agree. There are other companies, to be honest, that are much bigger than OKVIZ, that also produce custom visuals, and there are very, very good custom visuals. So yeah, I mean, it would be nice if Microsoft supported these companies a little bit more, to be honest, because I don't think that they are critical for the adoption of Power BI. So if you look at from the Microsoft point of view, do we sell more Power BI licenses if we support more the custom visuals? Probably the answer is no. Let's be honest, right? So it's not strategic for Microsoft. But at the same time, it's always trying to help customers they have, partners they have. Partners also help implement the solution made by Microsoft. So at the end of the day, it's an ecosystem, and all the elements should collaborate. Unfortunately, well, the good thing is that the adoption of the custom visual could be not so large in terms of revenues, but they cannot remove it. The good thing is that it could be not, let's say, critical from a revenues point of view, but if you remove it, they have big problems with big customers. They're not gonna do it. Okay, when you disappoint many small customers, that's not an issue. When you disappoint a few big customers, they don't pay only Power BI, they don't pay only Fabric, they pay a lot of other stuff. Well, that's the moment where you always have a bigger fish. You can be big, there is always someone bigger. So that's the only
Very
safety,
true.
that's the only insurance we have. So they're not going to dismantle the custom visuals as a concept and the app source marketplace as a concept. That's not going to happen. But of course, I would like to see more commitment. That's small things. For example, we asked them give us the ability to activate the license with our own system. So supporting publish to web is not rocket science. Come on. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's a prioritization, I think, at the end of the day for Microsoft.
But we ask for APIs. We just ask, look, just an API. You call our service. Is this license code enabled to do this operation or not? That's, I mean, it's not rocket science. Come on, we're in 2025. You have ChatGPT. You have Copilot. Ask Copilot to write the code. Come on.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like, what is it? Satya said like 30%. Yeah, 30% of of their code is being written by AI, but that's a whole separate conversation.
They could ask someone else to. They could ask the vendors to write the code. I mean, the problem is not, as you said, the problem is not the cost. The problem is that the focus and prioritization. Because of course, even if they write the code, then they have to test it, to deploy it, to support it, and blah blah blah. And that's a long story. And so they say, no, come on, we have other priorities today, so not going to happen.
Exactly. Looks like a couple of closing comments from Ben Lessing and Eric Svensson, but otherwise no final questions. So I think we can use this to probably wrap up and finish off the stream. Any other closing comments from you, Steve?
No, I just thank you so much. I mean, always love to hear you talk about DAX, but this was very nice as well for you to come on and talk about some visuals. Yeah. So this was really great.
Probably nice to not have to talk about DAX for once.
I will talk soon about DAX with Synoptic Panel, because just today, there are many. So there are many articles and videos we have to publish, because sometimes the solution to the problem. So if you want to do certain things with Synoptic Panel, then you have to implement the model in a certain way, because for example, you have a layout that changes over time. You have a shop, you have the retail demo, but over time you change the position of the products. Now what happens? You have different maps over time for the same location. So you have different location, different time. And so how do we manage that? Oh, that's an interesting problem. I said, just this morning I said, oh, that's interesting. We could write an article about that. Because it's a data modeling issue that you also have with other reports. And of course, in this case, you have an additional layer of complexity, which is how do we manage that, right? Because if the user select 2 years, and in these 2 years, we change the layout of the shop, what should display? What do we do, right? So that's an interesting problem. And so there is also data modeling more than DAX, but also DAX sometimes is involved, yes.
End of the day, DAX is the lifeblood that circulates across everything BI for Microsoft, right?
Yes.
Well, with that, Marco, I really appreciate you coming on for this as always. Love seeing the new products and things that are expanding as part of the mini jars that you have your hand in around this Power BI and Fabric these days. So thank you for coming on and sharing that. And I'm sure I'll have you on at some point in the future as some tool or product or coding language continues to evolve that you have your hands in.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for having me as a guest today, and to give me the chance to show Synoptic Panel for more than 1 hour. So far, I just produced a small video of 6 minutes, not much, but we plan to do more to show in more detail everything, more tutorial, of course. But yeah, we will produce something more.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give space for a bit of a deep dive.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Then
have a good day.
Have a good night, afternoon, and evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.